Often when I speak, the press want to talk about the tragedy of the day. They want to talk about terrorism. They want to talk about weapons of mass destruction. They want to talk about emerging infections. I was at a press conference a couple of years ago, and no matter what the press conference was about, the second question would always be something about a terrorist, something about a bomb, something about chemical warfare. So one reporter one day made a mistake in a room filled like this and said to me, "Surgeon General, what's the most pressing issue before you today?" And I said, "Obesity." The room was silent. None of them knew what to ask. And I said to them, they said, "Why do you say that?" I said, "Because obesity is the terror within. It is destroying us, destroying our society from within. And unless we do something about it, the magnitude of the dilemma will dwarf 9/11 or any other terrorist event that you can point out to me. So this is a terror from within. It's destroying us."
Hi, my name is Brooke, and I'm 12 years old, and I'm gonna have liposuction.
Why?
Because I've struggled many years with my weight problems. I've been on so many diets, and nothing helps.
Click that. Stand back up. You know, usually when girls get on a scale, they take off their earrings, take off their socks, and take off their lipstick. 218, huh? Well, it is unusual to do surgery on somebody that's 12 years old
It
or
is,
something like this, but
you know
what's
what?
the choice?
That's it. What's the choice?
Well, yeah,
We don't really
by
have
the
a-
time we wait till she's 18 years old, she's liable to be 300 pounds.
Well, and I'm worried about the emotional scars.
Okay, well, tell us what you've got.
Well, this right here is the big apron that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And actually under here, I've had this, it gets infected right here, and then it smells really bad from the infection, and then it burns too, so.
And you know, if you've got a daughter that does have a weight problem, you know, you want to try to do the best that you could do for them. You don't like to see your kid be ridiculed or shunned or made fun of.
So we're going to take some of this fat out here, a bunch of it, all here, and here, and here, get rid of some of these rolls.
It's just going to be so great to go to school and just have everyone like you without being a part of just one group. Like, you can just be, because everyone like knew me as just like the nice girl. Like, no one knew me as anything else. But I want to go back and be something else.
Well, we're ready. No, I think we can go back and get started. Mom, you can just, you want to just wait outside?
Yeah, I'd love to. Give me this. I love you so much.
This cannula is blunt. The tip is blunt and the holes are blunt. So when it goes through the tissue, we push aside the arteries, nerves, and veins just as my fingers are pushed aside and not hurt in any way. Yellow fat.
For years, the government's warned there's an epidemic of obesity in America.
Some might say that being fat in this country is becoming part of American life.
2/3 of the country is overweight or obese.
That's 60 million people.
It's shocking and shameful that as a country we've let the problem get that bad.
As a nation, we're 5 billion pounds overweight.
And it's killing us.
Obesity is deadly because it leads to many diseases.
Clogged arteries and heart disease, cancer and gallbladder disease.
High blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes.
The effects of diabetes are just about everywhere.
I feel very strongly about this. Obesity is a crime on the body. It can do all kinds of horrid things. It's a fact of life. I lost it. And diabetes had something to do with it.
All the adolescents today that have diabetes are going to be losing their toes and their fingers in their 30s, and 10, 20 years later, they're going to be unable to move.
That means in the next decade, 10 years, we're going to have 40 or 45% of school-age children insulin dependent. What are we thinking?
This generation of children is the heaviest in American history.
more than 9 million U.S. children are seriously overweight and obese.
The obesity rate has more than tripled for children between the ages of 6 to 11 in the last 3 decades.
And in fact, we may be producing a generation of children whose life expectancy isn't as long as our own. And shame on us.
But the bottom line is that we got too many kids, too overweight, and they're walking time bombs.
Your parents were fat, you're fat. Like, 'cause my parents were both fat. My mom had gastric bypass surgery, and then my dad, like, he just got, because he died 4 years ago, he was fat too.
This is the obesity crisis.
The fact is that human beings are at the cusp of an evolutionary disaster.
Humans have been on Earth for about 4 million years, and during almost all that time, they've not had enough food. And so the evolutionary advantage is always conferred upon those people who are good at food acquisition and food consumption and in developing ways of storing food. And that's advantageous in a world where there's an insufficient supply of food.
There's an unbelievable shift in the dynamics of the relationship between food and the effort to get it. Remember, we're hunters-gatherers, and catching any animal's not easy. You have to run for dinner.
Hunter-gatherers are very busy folks, and they spend just about all of their daylight hours in activities that are directly related to getting that day's food. And the thing is, most of foods in the natural environment are not calorically dense. They are very low in calories per unit mass. And so when a hunter-gatherer encounters a rich package of nutrients, they are programmed to eat as much of it as they can because it's so rare. Natural selection couldn't possibly have ever envisioned a situation in which a human being would need to cut down on their fat intake. There was never so much fat out there that we needed to evolve any mechanism to say, hey, you've had enough fat for today, cut it out.
Human beings have no real way of turning off their food desire.
There's two things that have allowed humans to thrive over the course of our whole evolution. The fact that we want to have sex all the time and we want to eat all the time. To think that we can just say, I'm not going to listen to this signal is overly simplistic.
It would be very much like a group of church people saying, no, you shouldn't do sex. Well, people will do sex and they will eat.
Basically, you know, we're just rather clever, intelligent apes in terms of our basic biology.
Those of us who are interested in obesity have to, I think, understand that the victim, the average person that eats too much, is really struggling with something of historic proportions. It's not that they have no self-discipline, it's that we're in the wrong place at the wrong time as a species.
As a species, humans adapt to their environments. And a lot of what happens is below the level of our conscious awareness. And so oftentimes the things that we do automatically. We don't even realize it.
If you ask the typical person how many food-related decisions they make in a day, the average person is going to say about 15.
OneSync estimates we make 200-plus food choices every day. Most of them are influenced by factors we don't even notice, like the size of the serving dish or the distance back to the kitchen for a refill.
I mean, even just before breakfast, you're deciding what cereal you want, how much you're going to pour, whether to put sugar on it, how much milk to put on it, whether you're going to have a refill, whether to cut fruit. And there's 12 decisions that are made, bam, before you even sit down and have your first bite for the day.
People tend to eat based on the size of the package or the amount that's on their plate. That's the guide to how much to consume. And obviously, people are eating too much.
This is the way we eat. This is what we've been looking for hundreds of years, thousands of years. In 75 years, we've gone from having very little to eat and really being concerned about that to being able to go out and for a few bucks in our pocket, eat more than our fill. This must be an appropriate amount of French fries to eat, or I wouldn't have been given this many French fries. I think this is the right size of a meal, or they wouldn't offer these things like this. You know what I love about this? Free refills. Somebody who doesn't know better may not realize that there's probably about 360 calories in this right here.
I eat at the fast food places occasionally. I'll order a kid's meal when I go through the drive-thru. And I get giggled at because I get the little toy and I bring it home to my children. But that is an adult-appropriate size. It's not a kid-appropriate size. And the meals that they're selling to adults are a family-appropriate size.
Some years ago, I began using the term toxic environment to describe the food and physical activity environment that people are exposed to. And toxic is a pretty strong word. But if you think about toxic, it means that something is introduced into the environment that makes people sick. Environmental conditions change, people get sick from it. So you think about a poison, for example. But the food environment has changed in ways that I think are toxic, because large portions, heavy promotion, relentless and heavy promotion of unhealthy foods by the food industry, and any other number of factors combine to create pretty much the perfect storm, if you will, that almost guarantees obesity under modern conditions.
Everywhere you go, there's food available. When I was young, if you went to the gas station, you could only get gas. Now you can get candy and chips and everything. When you went to a bookstore, you could just get a book. Now you can get coffee and pastries and chocolates. I mean, every place, hardware stores, you know, car washes, everybody has got food and vending machines, and so there are cues all around us all the time that are making us think it's time to eat.
Free Beef. It's back at Les Schwab. Choose from the West's largest selection of tires. Company-wide, we're giving our customers over $1 million worth of free beef with the tires they buy. Free Beef.
When we talk about what caused the obesity epidemic, there are many factors. Part of what I find fascinating is how people want to just grossly oversimplify this.
All we have to do is have people eat less and exercise more. Not a very big problem.
And have their pet little theories about what it is, or, you know, a really simple equation.
The rise of obesity can be parallel with the rise of the Golden Arches and all the other fast food companies.
There are a lot of complex factors involved here. Genetics, social factors, a whole variety of factors that have to do with diet, exercise, and so forth. And then part of it has to do with stress patterns.
We know from the scientific evidence that the stress piece of the puzzle is as important as the diet piece, and that's as important as the exercise piece. But all we hear about from the public health officials is eat less, exercise more, and that is clearly not working.
One reaction to stress is cravings for food. That's a very common response that's well documented in all sorts of different ways.
When you're under stress, your body really dials itself back. Your metabolism goes down and you get into a storage state where your body is thinking that you're under famine conditions, and so you don't burn the fat.
There's a very interesting connection between cortisol, which is made by our adrenal glands, and obesity. The more stressed you are, the fatter you get.
So cortisol is telling our brain to eat, and it's telling our belly to store. And that makes perfect sense if you're expending energy in response to stress. But if our stress is from traffic jams and bills and deadlines and family issues, we're not expending any calories, but we're getting the very same eat, store signals from cortisol, and that's leading us to become fat.
We are working harder, we are more stressed, we do have less time for sleep.
On a grand scale, this whole war on terror is the perfect recipe for making a population obese.
Murderous regimes dedicating to killing us, tyranny and terror, slaughtered thousands.
I think there's very little doubt that the culture of fear is involved in the obesity epidemic. I think the evidence is pretty clear about that.
Weapons program,
the deadliest of weapons.
Terrible weapons, nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons.
Introduce something into the population that makes every single person scared or concerned or stressed at a very low grade level. It's not something where you're hiding under your bed or you're closing the blinds every day. It's always in the back of your mind.
The evil terrorist poison gas, torture chambers, mass graves.
Deadly technologies.
And it really is leading us to become a society of overstressed, overweight, under-exercised people, and it really is a combination of those. It's not as simple as eating a healthy diet anymore.
Brooke, can you talk to us? Brooke, how you feeling, dear? She says she's doing just great. Feels wonderful. And we have taken out 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16 liters of FAT, and it's almost all fat with just the littlest bit of blood. Brooke, how you feeling?
That's pretty good.
Pretty good, huh?
Yeah,
Well, we just finished all the surgery, and your lip is a little bit partially paralyzed from the Novocaine we put in there. That'll wear off.
So you've lost more weight today than you've lost in 5 years.
I didn't feel thing.
You're 35 pounds lighter than you were. The doctor took 16 liters of fat off of you.
Well, if we could do 35 pounds every day for, say, 5 or 6 days, we'd have you down to a size 2 in about a week,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, you'd be littler than your mama.
Yeah.
We'd have to put weights on you to keep from blowing away.
When it comes to having plastic surgery, how young is really too young?
Well, some say it depends on the circumstance. At just 12 years old, Brooke Bates says liposuction was her only hope in a battle of persistent weight problem.
All her young life, Brooke Bates struggled with her weight. By the 5th grade, she tipped the scales at 218 pounds.
A 12-year-old girl who tipped the scales at 220 pounds took a drastic step, liposuction, and she did it with her parents' blessing,
making her one of the youngest people ever to get lipo.
Before, I just stayed at the house, kind of depressed, and now I'm just happy as can be.
But 6 weeks later, she was back on the table for a tummy tuck, and another 10 pounds were removed.
My goodness. My goodness, doing this at 12?
And it's really a sign of our national problem with weight. If we're at the point where our kids have to be going through this kind of surgery now.
Cindy Bates is Brooke's mother.
You didn't feel like 12 years old was too young?
No, maybe for some kids, but not for Brooke.
Now 13, Brooke is down to 155 pounds and says she feels great.
She says it's completely changed her life.
There's a lot more boys in their world, let's put it that way. And I think my dad doesn't really like that too much, but I like it a lot.
Do you have any regrets?
No, ma'am. No regrets from the surgery. None at all. I would do it again in a second if I needed it.
And then there's the question, will the weight stay off? Something that Brooke is hoping to avoid with regular diet and exercise.
And I look at the pictures from 6 months ago and say, not ever going back there again. Never. I look at the scale now and I'm just like, wow, how have I let myself get this way? It really sickens me. It makes me feel really sad. I mean, I'm mad at myself because I always said I would not gain the weight back. But, you know, I can't like look in the camera and just say, you know, I'm not going to gain my weight back.
And this is the question I've heard a lot of people say. If Brooke gained the weight back the first time, it's clearly an emotional issue, the eating.
I don't really relate it to an emotional issue. I think it's more of a hereditary characteristic in our family.
Well, when I was young, my parents used to fight kind of sometimes, and that really stressed me out, and that would drive me to eat. When they would argue, it would make me feel like uncomfortable, and I'd get so nervous, like I would just eat, because what else, you know, I didn't know what else to do. I mean, I was so nervous, and so I just, instead of biting my fingernails or something like that, I would just eat and eat and eat. Like, food's my comfort, and it still is, and I wish it wasn't. I mean, I've always wanted to be something that I wasn't. And I always wanted to be the 120-pound cheerleader, long blonde hair, you know, really pretty, and I wasn't. I was just the big, fat girl. That's all I was ever, the big, sweet, nice girl. The society doesn't like bigger people, so when I start to gain my weight, I'm like, wow, no one's gonna, you know, like me as who I am right now. And as as you're a guy, you tend, if there was either a bigger woman or like someone who looked like Pamela Anderson, who are you going to choose? The one who looked like Pamela Anderson, I'm sure. And so, I think that I'm just scared because I'm like, wow, right now people are liking me, and down the road, they're not going to if I get big again.
Laura and I are so pleased to welcome the Ad Council as well as leaders from our business community to talk about a serious American problem, and that is childhood obesity. Childhood obesity is a costly problem for the country. We believe it is necessary to come up with a coherent strategy to help folks all throughout our society cope with the issue, and I appreciate the Secretary being here. Thanks for coming, Mr. Secretary. We'll discuss one of the strategies, encouraging children to exercise. One way for this nation to cope with the issue of obesity is to get people outside, whether it be through sports or hiking, or conservation. So we'll encourage them to do that. Encourage parents to encourage their children to participate in the great outdoors.
Epidemics of obesity and related chronic diseases are sweeping the nation at all levels of society. Now, we're used to thinking about obesity and chronic disease as adult problems, but they're quickly being passed on to our children. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to ourselves to take better care of our health. And we owe it to our children to encourage healthy habits in them and to teach them healthy habits. This morning, I met with the President. I was joined by a number of CEOs from major food companies. We had a very productive discussion. HHS has been working with the Ad Council and with DreamWorks Animation to create a new series of public service ads as part of the President's Healthier U.S. initiative. Now, these public service announcements, which you're about to see, feature characters that are popular and well known. They promote physical exercise in a way that will appeal to children and to their parents. And now I'd like to hear from Shrek and his friends and take a look at the new Healthier U.S. Healthier U.S. website.
Get up and get groovy. Kid, what's up with you? Let's get up and play. Do something. Stop slumping like a lump all day. Get on up, come on. Get out the door. Let's shake that booty like never before. Let's run, have fun. Let's jump and groove. Get up and get that body up. Make it move. Get up, get up, get up and be a player. Get up, get up, get up. Woo. Let's run, have fun. Get up and be a player.
Get up and play an hour a day.
Ouch! Sorry. For cool playtime ideas, go online. Just don't stay long.
Gonna shake that booty like never before. I understand that we have a very special guest.
Quite frankly, when I saw Shrek 1 and Shrek 2, I saw these movies, I kind of liked Shrek. He became a lovable, nice guy that wanted to do good. Now, what do we see? Here's Shrek advertising Twinkies. Green Twinkies with a green filling in it. Still, Twinkies. Twinkies.
First up, a tip o' the hat to Shrek, who has teamed up with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for a PSA promoting more exercise for kids. That's why Shrek gets an additional tip of my hat for finding other ways to spread his message of health through joint ventures with Snickers, Pop-Tarts, Skittles, Cheetos, McDonald's.
Kids see Shrek and they like Shrek. They saw the movie.
Pez, M&M's.
And Shrek, why, he likes Twinkies, so Twinkies must be okay to eat.
Eggo waffles, Frosted Flakes.
Nutritional value, 0. No, I'm sorry. The nutritional value of Twinkies is negative.
Sierra Mist, Eel Fedge Double Stuffs, and Berry Berry Banana Yogo Bits.
Now, Shrek now becomes a bad guy. A bad guy. Trying to get our kids to eat unhealthy food. Shame. Shame on the advertisers taking a likable, lovable character when he was first introduced to kids in the movies and in other things, and now using Shrek to poison our kids. And I use the word poison because that's what this food does. Poisons our kids by making them obese and unhealthy.
Remember, kids, nothing gives you energy and get up and go to play an hour a day like high fructose corn syrup. Woof!